Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On our deal with.
Like the rushing of a mighty wind. Like the rushing of a mighty wind.
So I want to revisit what where this originally started. I'd like to pose a question to American Dream. So let's table the whole benefits part of it. Can you agree that racism was codified into the text of the Constitution? Also, I want to add on top of the 3/5 clause, the fugitive clause that was also codified into the Constitution.
Wait, what's your question?
Yeah, my question is, I want to table the whole benefits thing, right? I want to go back to my original point, is that racism was absolutely codified into the language of the U.S. Constitution. So I'm saying, do you agree, based on the 3/5 compromise being in there and also the fugitive clause both being codified within the text, those are examples of racism being codified. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with the 3/5 thing.
How about the Fugitive Slave Act?
The Fugitive Slave Act was, what was that again? Capturing, returning slaves?
Yeah, so yeah, if somebody get to the north, they return them.
Was that a part of the, is that an act in and of itself, or is that a part of Congress? Or is that a part of
it's in the Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 9, or was Article 1, Section 9.
Which I mentioned, which both states, both groups, the North and the South, both of them agreed upon. So for the Fugitive Slave Act, if a slave was found in the North and proper papers were served, then the North would have to release them back to their slave owners, no matter if they had some freedom in the United States. So Haskell is right for bringing up the fugitive slave law. So let's narrow it down. The fugitive slave law was part of the laws of the United States. It is not colorblind. So why don't you answer Haskell's question?
Well, I thought I already addressed that, Haskell. What's his name? Clarence Thomas was speaking about the Constitution as it exists today. That fugitive clause is not a part of the Constitution anymore. Like, I don't understand why you're like, let me just finish my statement. Let me just finish. In order for y'all to condemn Clarence Thomas, y'all have to be talking about a constitution that he wasn't talking about. Like, why are y'all going back 400 years in order to condemn him? He's not talking about that. The minute you're
talking about the Constitution that's been today, right, over and over again, you are conceding that the original Constitution basically codified language. Then you're conceding that in your statement.
I'm conceding what?
That the original document has racially codified.
Yeah, you're cutting out, bro. I don't hear what you're saying. Does anyone hear him?
The original document has racially codified language. For you to be sticking to the document as it exists today after being amended.
Of course, you had the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment.
That's what we've been arguing with you for the past hour.
What we're arguing about is whether or not what Clarence Thomas said was true or not.
But Clarence Thomas is an originalist.
No, he's not. Is Clarence Thomas talking about the original Constitution or the Constitution as it is today?
Clarence Thomas is known as an originalist.
That's correct.
Okay, hold on. Listen to what I'm asking you, Truett. I'm asking you a very simple question.
Wait, ask him does he know
about
that Clarence Thomas is an originalist?
Hold on, bro. I'm asking a simple question. Is he talking about the Constitution as it exists when he says it's colorblind? Is he talking about the Constitution today or when it was first drawn up?
Based off of knowing his position, I would say yes. He's talking about the original document. He's an originalist.
He's an originalist.
Were they using? Hold on, but he wasn't. Hold on, they weren't using the original document to make the decision they just made, though. So why
but
would
you
he?
never-
I never said that. But I'm talking about
He
like
used. Hold on. Let me finish my statement. He's using the Constitution as it's written today. They're using that to make their decision. And he said it's colorblind. So why would you think he's talking about an older version of it,
because
which
he
is
went
not the
further
version
and he
they're
said
using?
he doesn't think they did enough because he wants to roll back what they decided even further because he's trying to get as close to the original document as possible.
He doesn't think who did enough. He doesn't think who did enough.
American Dream.
What did he say?
Clarence Thomas is against progressivism. That means that when you talk about the Constitution today, the changes in the amendments that we've seen are like literally stem from progressivism. And what Clarence Thomas is arguing is that those changes are actually antithetical to the core of the Constitution when it was written. So of course, he's not talking about what the Constitution looks like today, because he would argue that the interpretations of the Constitution today, the openness of it, all of those things are actually counterintuitive to the core of why it was introduced in the first place.
Right. So I asked ChatGPT, does being an originalist mean you want to go back to the first original draft of the Constitution as it was written? And it says no. Most constitutional originalists do not believe the country should literally return to the Constitution exactly as it existed in 1787. Originalists generally accept that the Constitution includes all properly ratified amendments, such as the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, and the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. An originalist would say the Constitution changed through the amendment process, so those changes are now part of the Constitution and should also be interpreted according to their original meaning when adopted. So, for example, an originalist does not usually say slavery should return just because slavery existed under the original Constitution. Instead, they would say the Constitution was later changed by the 13th Amendment, and that amendment is now authoritative constitutional law. The important distinction is originalism is about fixed meaning, not frozen policy. The Constitution can change, but only through formal amendment or legislation, not through judges redefining words over time. For instance, an originalist judge like Antonin Scalia strongly defended the 14th Amendment even while arguing against living constitutionalism. This is also why debates around originalism often focus heavily on what the framers meant in 1787, what Reconstruction Congresses meant in the 1860s, and what the public understood amendments to mean when ratified. That becomes especially important in debates over racial gerrymandering, equal protection, voting rights, affirmative action, and incorporation of the Bill of Rights. So it's pretty clear that as an originalist, Clarence Thomas does not think when he said that the Constitution is colorblind, he's not speaking about the Constitution as it was first written in its original draft. He's speaking about it as it exists today with all the amendments. And so I just think that these guys are just really mistaken on this one. But let's continue with the conversation.
Dream, even though Clarence Thomas is an originalist, to be fair, he doesn't specifically mean, being an originalist doesn't mean 1787. Originalist means literally original adoption of anything. So he could necessarily be talking about 18. He could be talking about the 14th Amendment in 1868. He could be, because he's talking about the original adoption. That's all. I just wanted to add that. I'm gonna step back out.
No, that's not exactly true. So wait, let me
just say this. Anybody that listens to Clarence Thomas knows. Oh, hold on.
Let me say something real quick.
I was talking, and then he asked me. He was asking me a question, and I have to give some sway, but it won't be long.
Okay.
Originalism is a concept demanding that all judicial decisions be based on the meaning of the U.S. Constitution at the time that it was adopted. Originalists contend that the Constitution should be interpreted strictly according to how it would have been understood by the framers.
But he's talking.
Originalist is a contrast to the living Constitution theory, the belief that the meaning of the Constitution must change over time. They're against that. Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black and Anton Scalia were particularly noted for their originalist approach. So the originalist in the Constitution is one who thinks that it should be interpreted strictly by how the framers of the Constitution originally designed it for. So I'll stop. Thank you.
So Clarence Thomas was referring to the 14th Amendment, correct? Dream. He was referring to what amendment when he says colorblind? What is he referring to?
You would have to ask Haskell. Haskell is the one that said he made this.
Haskell,
I thought he was talking about the overall Constitution.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I took it as.
Okay. So a common misconception of an originalist, just so we're clear. Originalism is a theory of legal interpretation holding that the U.S. Constitution should be applied according to the public understanding and meaning it had at the time of adoption. Post the constitutional meaning is fixed, and judges should rely on history to uphold this original understanding rather than allowing interpretations to evolve with modern societal values. Common misconception and context, not just 1789. Originalists are bound by all properly adopted amendments, including the Bill of Rights, 1791, and the Reconstruction Amendments. Application. When a provision is unclear, originalists look to history, public debates, and dictionaries from the era to interpret the language. So it doesn't specifically mean the literal first writing, first draft, whatever you want to call, of the Constitution. It's also the original adoption. So that would fall under the 14th Amendment. If he's saying that it's not colorblind, I'm just laying my plane, I'm done. If he's saying that I'm not agreeing with this. But when I hear originalism from Clarence Thomas, what I hear based on what I know, he's interpreting the 14th Amendment based on what he believes it meant in 1868, not what it means in 2026. That's my point.
Because if you take it to mean Clarence Thomas is an originalist, he wants the original Constitution, then you're saying Clarence Thomas wants to go back to be counted as 3/5 of a person, and that's just silly. Like, who would want to do that? Like, that's just nonsense.
Clarence Thomas's decision against racial gerrymandering as an originalist cannot be condemned as a racist decision, because as an originalist, he's not going back to the very first original draft of the Constitution. He's using the amendments and articles of the amendment that pertain to racial gerrymandering. And as an originalist, he's going back to the original interpretation of those articles and amendments as they were intended by the original people who framed them. And according to him, racial gerrymandering goes against those principles, the principles in the Constitution, which he sees as colorblind, which goes against racial gerrymandering, or which doesn't say anything about racial gerrymandering. When he says the Constitution is colorblind, he's speaking about the articles, which I believe is Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. He's saying those ideas are colorblind, and that those ideas don't even speak of a thing called racial gerrymandering. He's not speaking about the Fugitive Act or anything that was included in the original writing or in the very first drafting of the Constitution. And to pretend as if that's what originalism is a misrepresentation of Clarence Thomas himself, a misrepresentation of originalism, and just a misrepresentation, I think, of a proper understanding of originalism and of the decision that was made in this case, and of what Clarence Thomas meant by the Constitution being colorblind.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them out you want hygiene a tweet. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 days we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go live. Them never yet plant and not try figure it. Bigger heads where you fight for the seat. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets where we born and grow, only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest say them want it low. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah. Everybody just a pre-success. When me looking at the street, you me see enough stress. Them all a fight for who reach up next. Everybody want floss and a beat up chest. Juvenile in a them teen love sex. Them a pre the fast money, them no need subjects. And if you're unfortunate, please don't vex. I saw the thing said cause the streets don't rest.
In the streets where we born and grow, only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest say them want it low. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah. It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them out you want hygiene a tweet. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want the guns and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 wheels we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go live. Them never yet plant and not try figure it. Bigger heads where you fight for the seat. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets where we born and grow, only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest say them want it low. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah.